Hi, 5th and 6th grade. This is your science video for Tuesday, February 9th. Looks like we might have snow coming in this week. I know that probably sounds exciting to you, but remember, do not just expect that it's going to happen for sure. And it would be fun if it did. However, if it doesn't, don't be left unprepared for the things that need to be done. So if that's the case, if you're watching this video, then you'll know. But if that's the case, then we'll know that on Friday we will not have a spelling test and probably won't have a spelling list for next week. It would just nix all the spelling for next week and make it so that the spelling list would be carried over 2 weeks. And so we would probably just do the final test on next week instead, if that's what happens with the snow. All right, so we're going to be doing page 204 and 207, work text page 139. And we'll go ahead and start reading here, starting on page number 204. Stresses on an ecosystem. An unexpected change in the environment can cause an ecosystem to not be able to function normally. A river might overflow its banks and flood nearby fields and towns. Fires might burn forests and force animals and people to flee to safety. Droughts can dry up the water supply, causing crops to fail and soil to erode. A stress is any physical hazard to life caused by having too much or too little of things needed for life. And so if you look here on number 1 on your study guide on page 130, it says any physical hazard to life caused by having too much or too little of things needed for life is called a. Now you see what they don't do. They don't write it exactly the way it is in a book because they want you to think about what it says as opposed to just copying words. And so the word is, that's right, stress. Okay, and so the number 2 there, you're looking for gradual changes in the populations of organisms in an ecosystem are called, and so we're going to be looking for that next. So these stresses, we're back on page 204, these stresses were not a part of the world when God created it. They have come into the world because of sin. Usually they are tragic disasters. Animals may die or be forced to move. Plants may be uprooted or burned. However, despite all these stresses, God maintains his earth. Fire. Many forest fires are started through man's carelessness. Other forest fires are caused by lightning. Either way, fires can cause ecosystems to undergo quick and sudden changes. Fires are often thought of as destructive and harmful. Sometimes, though, fire can be beneficial to an ecosystem. Forest fires get rid of dead trees, branches, pine needles, and other things that could cause larger fires. For this reason, some fires are allowed to burn themselves out. People carefully watch these fires, though, so that they do not get out of control. Any fire that threatens the safety of people is put out as soon as possible. And then on the next one, it's fires cause nutrients from dead trees and plants to be recycled into the soil. These nutrients make the forest soil rich and fertile. Some plants have seeds that will sprout only after a fire. For instance, the lodgepole pine's cone needs heat in order to open and release its seeds. Over time, new forests grow to replace those that were burned. This may take many years. The new forest, though, is not exactly like the one that it replaces. It often has a greater variety of plants and animals than the old one did. So if you look back at the question, in question number 5, it says, what are 3 ways a forest fire can be beneficial to an ecosystem? And we just talked about those. And one of those was that certain plants need the fire in order to be able to sprout again. And we're talking about the lodgepole. That was one of them, but there are 2 other ones as well. And so write those down with that one. If you look, though, they're talking about floods. How's a flood different from a drought? And then what are 2 benefits of floods? And so those are things that we're going to look at next on the flood part. It says a flood occurs when an ecosystem receives more water than it can use or store. A flood can move large amounts of earth and rock. The force of water can uproot trees and move houses. Sometimes a flood can carry away rich topsoil. Without topsoil, crops may not be able to grow. Floodwaters may also destroy crops and other plants by covering them with water. Sometimes flooding occurs when a river overflows its banks into surrounding land. It may take a while for floodwaters to recede into the river. When they finally do, the river may have a new water level or even a new route. Like fires, floods are often very harmful and disastrous. However, floods can be beneficial. Floods can distribute fertile soil and seeds, allowing plants to grow in areas where they may not have grown before. Some trees depend on annual floods. Without them, the tree's seeds could not sprout. Right? And then on the back side of the drought, it says, a drought occurs when an ecosystem receives less rainfall than it needs. Sometimes a drought is so severe that there is not enough water to meet the needs of the plants and animals. Lower water levels in rivers and streams cause many problems for the fish and wildlife that depend on the water. The lack of rain causes topsoil to be dry and dusty. It can be easily eroded by the wind. Some plants die without a good water supply. These factors all cause food for animals and humans to become scarce. In poorer countries, drought often leads to famine. Droughts also make an area more susceptible to fires. Dry vegetation burns easily, so once a fire starts, it can spread rapidly. In extreme heat, some fires can even start by themselves. A drought does not have a definite beginning or end. In this way, a drought is different from other natural disasters. The beginning of a drought may not be noticed for weeks or even months. The end of a drought also occurs gradually. Some droughts last only a few months. Others can last for years and completely change an ecosystem. Succession. Ecosystems are changing all the time. Many of these changes are due to stresses such as fires, floods, and droughts. After a stress occurs, the size of the populations and the types of organisms are often different. For example, new trees and plants grow to replace a destroyed forest. However, the species of trees and plants may be different from those in the original forest. Animal populations also change according to what foods are available. These gradual changes in the populations of organisms in the ecosystem are called succession. So if you look back at question number 2, your gradual changes in the population of organisms in an ecosystem are called, and we know what that is, that gradual changes is succession. Succession happens when part of the environment changes. The environment determines what kind of living things can exist in an ecosystem. A change in the climate, amount of sunlight, or available nutrients causes the living things in the ecosystem to change. All right. Well, with the possibility of this week of not having school on Friday, we'll go ahead and make the secret word snow. And then hopefully tomorrow the secret word might be snow day if we are able to get that. All right, that's it. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.